Today we've got a very pretty gift box featuring our very first paper orchid. Let's take a look at what we have here in front of us. Obviously it's a box, there's a top and a bottom, and then we've got a flower here, obviously. So let's just start by putting together something simple. We're going to start with the top of the box actually. So this is the main part of the top of the box, and what we're going to do is we're just going to join the little corners together. So I've already kind of pre-folded everything. What you want to do is just take your glue and start with one tab. Try to get that glue out to the very edge there, and just bring that in and get it nice and aligned with its neighbor there. Make sure that everything lines up nicely. Give that a squeeze. Just hold that in place for just a moment. Okay, then move our way over to the opposite side. Get a little bit of glue there, and then run that glue right out to the very edge there. And just get that connected, nice and lined up. And just squeeze that together. And now the top has a nice little pattern piece that we're gonna put on top there. We've also got a little border that's gonna go all the way around. That's gonna really take this thing over the top. Okay. And let's get our glue on the next tab here. I might have gone a little crazy there with the glue. Okay, and let's get that lined up nicely. I'm going to try to get this as accurate as possible because we do have a little overlay. It's going to go all the way around the sides of this. So we want to be as accurate as possible so that when we do put that down, it fits nicely for us. Okay, so that just leaves our last little corner here. And just get your glue on there. Right out to the very edge. And there we go. Okay. Give that a few seconds to set. And then what we can do is we do have a little liner to kind of reinforce. So we do have a little liner that's going to go inside here, and that's simply to reinforce the box. What I would do is just a very thin line of glue all the way around the perimeter, and then maybe just a tiny bit on the inside. And just pop that in. Okay, so there is our top. And then here's where our little pattern piece is going to go. Now this is going to get nice and centered onto the top so that we have a little bit of that nice color coming through there. I believe this is a cantaloupe, AC cantaloupe. Okay, so let's get this on here. And we do want to focus our efforts as far as the glue goes on the perimeter. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm also going to give it a nice little line. And I'm going to use my finger to kind of spread that out to the edge. You don't have to get it into every single little area there, but the more the better, so that we don't have it kind of peeling off. Okay, and with this, again, just try to make sure that you get it nice and centered, a nice even border going all the way around. Give it a little nudge before you commit to its final spot, and then you can push from the inside so we don't crease the top at all. I want this to be nice and crisp for whatever gift we decide to give in this box. Okay, let's take a look at that. That looks good. All right, so that's that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find our little side pieces here. Now also, On the side here, you'll see that there are a series of little score marks, and these score marks essentially help you line this up because it's not flush with the top. There's a little bit of a border there, or a gap, and that is going to help you get that nice and aligned. So you want to get that right up to where that little edge is. Okay. Now you'll notice that on this piece here, there's little score marks there. So you want to fold that, give that a good crease. I believe that this paper I'm using is, it's more than 80 pound, so I really need to kind of push that down into place. Flatten it out because it's really thick and it's fighting a little bit. Okay, so get your glue on there. Run that glue out to the very top as well. And then, you know, we do have a lot of little scallopy areas here. My suggestion would be to just do a few little dots here and there, and don't be over concerned with trying to get glue onto every tiny little section here, because it's just going to drive you nuts and you're probably going to end up with a big mess. So just do your best with that, and then you can kind of dab it a little bit to flatten it out. Okay, and then flip this over and kind of grab it from both ends and just kind of scooch it up to where that little score mark is and get it in place, give it a press. Once you know that you have it lined up correctly, you can put it down on your surface and press down from the inside again. Okay. Now you'll notice that just the sides here have the little score marks. The fronts don't, because once you have one side in place, the rest of it just kind of falls into place. So you don't need to worry too much about that. Okay, so that looks nice. Now what we'll do is we'll just close this up by getting this little piece on here. Just glue that down and just fold it over. And that's going to kind of set the tone for the shorter side here as far as placement goes. And we'll do the same thing on this side. It also kind of makes it look continuous so that we don't have a little gap on the corners here. So that was nicely thought out. There we go. Okay, so you can see how that is turning out. It's really nice. And as you've probably guessed by now, we're going to repeat the same process on the other side, just as we did on this side. So I'm going to put this down. Let me clean off my nozzle here. Okay, and we'll get our glue on here. Don't want to overdo it. And then again, just a few little dots here and there in these little scallopy areas. Tiny, tiny dots. Don't do big old globs, because as soon as you press that down, it's going to come squirting out and it's going to make a huge mess. I'm kind of just squeezing out just a tiny bit and then pressing it up against the paper. Okay, nudge it right up to the little score marks there. Just like that. Just kind of hold that in place for a moment. And then, once it's tacky enough, you can flip it over and press down from the inside. Okay. There we go. And again, let's finish off the little corners here. Hopefully we align this correctly so that when we put the shorter sides on, everything matches up nicely. I think I did a pretty good job. So hopefully that will work out for me. Yeah, we'll see. See how accurate I am today. Definitely felt a little out of it as far as the gluing goes today. It's definitely not on top of my game for whatever reason. Okay. All right, so far so good. Now, I just got to take these pieces here and glue these down, and let's see how close I am. I am spot on. Okay, so with this, I'm going to put this down, just kind of hold the little end of it, or the edge of it here. And I went crazy with the glue there, that's for sure. I'm just going to dab that out a little bit. Okay, and then as I did before, just kind of getting a little bit of glue out of the bottle. You can see there's a little ball of glue just hanging out the tip, and I'm just kind of just taking a little tiny bit of that little ball that came out and pressing it onto the paper just to get that tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of glue. Okay, and then just want to line that up with the existing little side pieces there. Make sure that you have it lined up accurately, and then just reach out over there on the other end, make sure it lines up, and just hold that down for just a second while it kind of gets a grip, and then we can flip it onto the surface and push from the inside. Okay, let's take a look at what that looks like. That looks great. Nice and aligned, nice and perfect. Okay, let's do that one more time. And then we can put the rest of the box together and then work on our little flower, which is actually pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll work a little bit of that glue out to the edge so we don't have that coming apart. Okay, and then again, get a little bit of glue out of that bottle and just barely make contact with this piece to get just the tiniest amount of glue to come out. And just kind of work it in those little areas there. Okay, perfect. And just get that lined up with one edge. Make sure it's nice and aligned. Work it over to the other side. Make sure it's nice and centered. And once it's got a little bit of a grip there, you can go ahead and pop it on your surface and press down. Okay, fancy little box, isn't it? Simple though. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, really pretty, very sturdy too, actually, with all the layers that we just added to it. Very, very sturdy. So, onto the bottom, and a little different, but not really. We kind of wanted to make it double walled, which is why there's a few extra pieces here. So what we're going to do is, I kind of already folded this over. These are two of the sides, okay, and then we have the two ends. So what we want to do is want to glue this together. So we're going to start by putting some glue on this tab here. Just get it all the way down, and then we want to get that glue right out to the edge. And I'm just going to paint that with my finger just to make sure that I got a little bit there. I'm just going to brush that off. Okay, and I think the easiest way to do this is just use your table, get it lined up. I'm kind of looking at these score marks here and then following them down, just making sure that that is nice and lined up. And then kind of pushing it as far as it'll go, and then just pop that tab over. Give that a second to get tacky, and then fold this over onto itself and just kind of run your finger along this edge here to make sure that you've got it nice and lined up, and that looks pretty darn good to me. And this is the bottom of the box too, so you're not going to see as much of it. Well, I'm going to go this way. I'm just so indecisive today. Okay, same thing on this side. So in essence, we're doing the same exact thing as far as assembly goes, except that the bottom is kind of double walled. So it's just one little extra step there. Okay, so again, just get it nice and lined up using the little score marks there. Make sure it's centered, and then just flip that tab over, flip it onto itself. Check your work, make sure it looks nice and flush there, and it is. Okay. All right, so structure's pretty much done. And what we can do at this point is we can glue the sides together just as we did with the top of the box. So let's get our glue on one of these tabs here and get that glue out to the edge. Whoa there, Mr. Bottle. Hey, you ain't done yet. Okay. I'm gonna move this out of the way while I get these corners connected. Eventually this top section here that I folded over is gonna get folded in and glued down. But for now, I'm just kind of holding it like that just to get it out of the way. It's easier to get my fingers in here. Okay. And moving on over here to the next side, get our glue on this tab. And I'm kind of just noticed I'm using a lot of glue in some places today, and it's not really helping me because it's taking a lot longer for things to dry. So go easy on the glue. I'm going to fold this out of the way for just a moment so that it's easier for me to get my fingers in here and get these corners connected. Then squeeze. You can also put it down on your surface like this to really expedite the gluing process. Move this out of the way again. And the next tab. There we go. Spread that out. Okay. And get that nice and lined up. And give that a few seconds to get tacky. And then you can put it down on your surface and press down from the inside. Let's help that. There we go. And that just leaves one more little tab here. Move that out of the way. I think by now you've pretty much figured out what we're doing here. So if you want to skip ahead, you're welcome to. Okay, and last piece here, get that connected with the edge on the other side. Put that down on my surface and just press. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to glue the walls in. Now take a look here. You can see that I've got that little area there. It's kind of coming apart. I'm gonna fix that real quick because I don't like that. Grab a piece of scrap paper, throw a little glue on there, and literally just slide it in and just paint the underside of this piece that's sticking off. Pop that down on my surface and just press and hold that in place until it sticks nicely. There we go. Now you can see how much more crisp that looks. Okay. All right, so next step is to glue the little double wall in. Okay, and we're going to do that by just throw a little bit of glue, probably here up at the top, and then maybe just a little bit on the inside. And I'm going to spread that out. Okay, and just fold it in. Make sure you fold the sides in first. Or the shorter sides, I should say. I guess they're all sides. It is a little bit skinnier on these sides here, so that it's easier to get the longer sides in later on. Okay. And actually, I didn't even need to paint that out to the edge. You can just kind of just get your glue on there and call it a day. Okay, so pop that in. Okay, and the next one, real simple. Don't need to go crazy with the glue on this. Just an extra wall. We do want it to sit in place, but no one's gonna really see it, so you don't have to get all obsessive with the glue on this. And the last one. And just press and hold that down. So now we got a nice double-walled box here. And then we're gonna also reinforce the bottom with our little liner, which is this guy here. So just take some glue, run it along the perimeter, a little bit on the inside, and just drop that right in. There we go. Okay, so there's your bottom, and then here's our top. Should fit nice and snug, and it does. And there's your box, beautiful little box. Now we do have a flower to make, a beautiful little orchid, and you can put the orchid right on top of the box if you want. We are going to kind of jazz this piece up a little bit with a nice bow. So you can do that if you'd like. Take a look at the final photo for how that's done. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the construction of the actual flower. Okay, so our box is done, and got a little bow that I'm gonna put on this. I just went ahead and put it together using my Bowdabra. I may have to do a video on the Bowdabra so you guys can see how easy it makes it. It's a 3-loop bow. I'm gonna end up hot gluing this on there because it's really thick, so I'm gonna need something that is really gonna hold it in place. I'm gonna bring it down just below. I also added some teardrop rhinestones there up at the top and the bottom. I'm gonna bring this down about here, and then the flower is gonna go on top of it actually, so I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm gonna wait till the flower is done so I can get a feel for how everything's gonna look. But in the meantime, we gotta put our flower together, so let's do that. And I'm gonna grab a dowel, a couple dowels actually, because we're gonna be doing some sculpting and some training and this and that. So we're gonna start with the leaf part here, and you can see that there are some little score marks going through that. So we want to pinch and kind of fold that to, well, crease it. And then we'll do the other side. And then what we want to do is we're going to take and with a dowel, just kind of wrap the end around the dowel to kind of, well, to kind of make it look like that. So it's not flat. We're going to make it a little round by using our dowel to do that. Just like that. We're going to do both sides of each little leaf. Okay, so just get it right on your dowel and just kind of curl it to make it look like that, and then we can always re-pinch it again. So you can see how it starts off flat and then we end up with this result. Okay, so that's kind of what we want to do. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And this is going to be the bottommost part of our flower here. So let's get that done first. Okay, and then we'll just kind of pinch it. All right, so that is that. Next piece, and you can tell that I ink this, okay? If you want to learn how to ink, I've got some videos on the website. Mostly they're, well, I show it in a lot of the videos. Maybe I'll add a link to some of the videos that feature my inking techniques. Okay, so with this, we're doing the same thing. We're gonna kind of curl the ends to kind of make them curved so they're not flat. Not the ends, but the sides, I should say. Okay, and of course, then we're gonna fold and just kind of pinch that so it gives it a nice bit of dimension. Kind of brings it to life so it's not so flat. Okay, and this is a, you know, I thought this was, this is a 3/8 inch dowel. That's one of my go-tos. Okay, and then just give that a pinch, and I've got one more here. Okay. There we go. Give that another pinch. Okay. All right, so this purple layer here, this is going to get glued right onto the green layer here, like so. Okay, so we're going to just make sure that those two are right on top of each other. And I'm just going to throw a little bit of glue right here. And we want the two petals on the bottom. We'll call this the bottom, where the actual leaves are. Okay, so we'll just glue that down like so. And can kind of flare these up just a tiny bit, pull them away from the actual leaf, and just make sure that it's nice and centered. Ultimately, this petal is going to come all the way up. And I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, so that just leaves these two. Well, we're going to work on these two first. Okay, and you can see what I did here as far as the inking. I used like a yellow, let me see if I can find the color here. Here it is. It's called Pear Tart. It's like a yellowish green for the inside, and then I used a purple around the edge and then a blue around the very edge. Okay, and now with this one here, all we're going to do with this is we're going to take, and you can see that there's a cut right down the center. We're just going to bring one end over onto the other end so that they meet like this. Okay, so what we can do is just throw a little bit of glue onto one of these little circular areas here at the bottom, and then fold this, just bring it over the top, and just press and hold that in place. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a dowel. I'm going to start with the thicker dowel, and I'm going to curl this down so it's kind of S-shaped. Okay, I don't want to overdo it. I'm going to start with the thicker dowel, and then I'm going to make this a little bit more pronounced with a thinner dowel. Okay, so you can see how that looks, how that curves nicely. Okay, and I think that's pretty much good for that. So let's do the same thing with the other one. Just throw a little dot of glue there on the bottom. That was a little too much. So I'm going to dab some of that off and just bring it over the top and hold that in place. And then while you're holding it in place, you can kind of start with the training, using the thicker dowel first so that I don't end up bending or creasing the paper. I want it to look nice and smooth, and then I'll grab a thinner one and wrap it around just to make that curl a little more pronounced. You can see how that curls. Okay, so now we're going to grab this piece here, and we're going to glue this to, there's a little circle there in the center. Just throw a dot of glue right in the center there. Don't overdo it. A little bit goes a long way. And you want to align this so that the edge of this is kind of, well, you're using this leaf here, or this flower petal, as kind of the center point. You want it just slightly off center. You don't want it crowding over that line. Okay, so that way, when we do the other one, we can use that same little center point and just make it look nice and symmetrical. So we'll throw that one down as well. Put it right on top, get it nice and centered, like so. Okay, so there's that. There we go. Okay, almost there. Okay, now for the main part of the flower, what I want to do is I'm going to just kind of train this and start making this round, because it's going to need to come in. Okay, so let's just kind of train this, make it round. Okay, now you'll notice that there's a series of score marks here. Now I want to take the little areas that are kind of, well, the score marks that are furthest, well, closest to the edge. Okay, and what we want to do is kind kind of loop it like that. Okay, and these two edges here are going to kind of connect. Okay, now what I just realized is that I inked one side of this, and for this part, we may want to ink both, the inside and the outside. So let me grab a piece of paper here, and I can kind of demonstrate the inking here, because I do want some ink on the outside as well, so it doesn't look so plain. Okay, let me find my blue. Okay, so there's my little applicators. I'm gonna grab my purple. There's my blue. I'm gonna flatten this out for just a second to make inking easier. So I'm just gonna apply a little bit of ink onto my little applicator. I'm gonna get some of it off. I don't want it to be too intense. And then the texture side of AC cardstock always inks a little bit better because it grabs a lot more of the ink, and it does so in a more uniform fashion. The other side's it's not horrible. It's just not as, I don't know, just doesn't grab as much of the ink, so we may need to get a little bit more ink on our applicator. And right now I'm just kind of brushing the surface as I'm hitting the edges, just to kind of get that on there. And I am gonna have to go heavier with this because, again, it doesn't have all those little textures, all those little nooks and crannies on the paper to really pull the ink off the applicator and embed it into the paper. So I'm gonna have to go a little bit heavier here. Which I don't normally have to do because I rarely ink the solid side of this AC cardstock. That's okay. It's working nicely though. So do a little bit of purple just around the edge. It's a little bit softer than the ultimate blue that I'm going to be putting on here. I don't have a darker purple, so the closest thing to a darker purple would be a purpley blue, which will still kind of look purple. So I'm going to go through here and maybe overdid it a little bit right there. That's okay though. Okay, so now let me grab my dark blue and throw a little bit on there. Let me get that in my finger nicely. And you can see the color there. It is darker. So I'm going to go a little bit easier on that, but you can see what's happening here. Got a nice little gradient occurring here. It's almost like a darker purple on the edge, and it gets lighter as you go in. And that's basically what I'm looking for here. Okay, so back to this. Now we've already kind of curled this. Okay, you can kind of do that too. However you want to do is fine. Okay, and then we're going to take these two pieces here and just kind of connect them like that. Okay, so it's almost like you're making a little cone. All right, so let's throw some glue on this piece here. Right, make sure you're keeping it on the correct side of the tab there, or the score line, I should say, and then just connect those two pieces together and give it a squeeze. That's how it's going to keep its shape, just like that. Okay, and then we do have a little stamen piece that's going to go inside here. I'll show you how that works, but that's kind of what we're looking for. And we can actually flatten this out a little more once it gets a nice hold. Okay, and that's going to go right in here like that. So you can see how that flower's coming together. And I think that's pretty good. Looks nice, and you can see how inking around the outside here kind of finishes it off. Otherwise it would have probably looked a little plain on the outside. Okay, so now we've got this piece here, and if you take a look, it looks almost symmetrical, except one side is a little bit thicker, okay? And this is going to be the top. And all we're doing here is, well, I'm going to train the center part here, just kind of round it out like so. And then we're just going to connect this together at the end. Okay, so it's going to look like that. So just throw just a single drop of glue there right at the tail and connect those two ends together. And just give it a squeeze. And then I'm just going to kind of pop this into the flower here, like so. It should just kind of stay up. And remember, try to get the thicker part up on top. And I may just use my little hot glue here. It might be hard to get my glue nozzle in there, so I'm just going to put a nice little drop of glue right on the very tip of that. And the thicker side, bigger side up. Just pop it in there. Just like that. You can just pull it out just a tad. Okay, so there it is. Okay, all right, now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take this and glue this right in that little center area there. Okay, so let me just drop a little hot glue. Come on, glue ball. All right, there in the center. And just pop that right in there. Overlap it just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And then once that is set, what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of pull this up so that it sits up more. And kind of train it up a little bit. Just like that. Okay, so there's our final flower. And really all that's left to do is, like I said, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna hot glue my bow to the box. Now you can throw that on there like that. I really would recommend putting a little bow on there and then affixing your flower to the bow so that you have kind of something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and then we can take a look at the final result here. Let's get some hot glue on the back of my ribbon, on my bow I should say. And again, kind of centering it down just a tad. Pardon my head for a second here. Let's get that down. We can always go in and kind of finesse the bow a little bit once it's got a nice hold here. Make sure that it's nice and centered. There we go. Okay, just hold that in place for a minute. And then we're going to finish this off by just throwing a little bit of baby breath and tucking it in underneath the bow, maybe throwing a little bit of hot glue on it just so that it stays nice and permanent for us. Just fluff this up a tad. Get it nice and pronounced, nice and dimensional. Obviously, you might need to flatten it out a little bit on the inside to make room for our flower. But that looks nice there. And then we take our flower and attach it pretty much right about here, I think, so that the center of it's pretty much centered with the box. That looks nice. So let me kind of move things around a little bit, and let's get some hot glue right there, and take our flower. Make sure we push this up a little bit so it sits up, and then get our flower right in there. Make sure it's nice and centered. And there we go. And that should pretty much hold it in place, especially with the hot glue. So, well, I'm definitely happy with the outcome here. I hope you are too. And if you enjoyed crafting with me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, we'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. And the 11,000 plus other dreamers would certainly love to see it. So visit us on Facebook by doing a search for Dreaming Tree Group and post a picture of your creation. We'd love to see it. So again, thanks for hanging out with me, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.